All right. Hello and welcome to CampusGuard's webinar, Educating End Users on Evolving Phishing Attacks. My name is Kathy Staples, and I'm the Marketing Manager here at CampusGuard. We also have Ginger Staples, CampusGuard Marketing Specialist, to monitor any questions that you're submitting. And Chad Wheeler is the manager of our Redlands InfoSec team. He's also here to assist with your toughest phishing questions. We are recording today's webinar, so look for an email with a link to the recording in the next day or two. If you have any questions, make sure to enter them into the chat and we will answer as many as we can after the presentation. We're also having a survey, so we want your feedback about today's content. There will be a brief survey after the event has ended, so make sure to take part in that. And today we're exploring evolving phishing tactics and covering different types of phishing, how AI is introducing new risks and best practices to keep your users informed and able to recognize and report suspicious phishing attempts. Let's get started by introducing today's presenter. As a manager of operations support, Katie Johnson leads the team responsible for supporting and delivering CampusGuard services, including online training, vulnerability scanning, and the CampusGuard Central Portal. Katie is also the product lead for CampusGuard's online training services and assists organizations with their information security and compliance programs. And with that, I will turn it over to Katie.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy, and thanks everybody for joining this morning. As she said, I'm the manager of our operations support team and then the product lead for our online training. So always kind of diving into, what is happening in the world, what sort of phishing attacks we're seeing, and how we can improve our training to be better. And that's what we want to really do today, is just help you see how you can better train your users. So today, obviously, October 30th, we're wrapping up Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I've seen a ton of great resources from your teams, other events being promoted. And at CampusGuard, we've had a lot of different activities going on, but we wanted to spend a little time just focusing directly on phishing. Phishing isn't new to anybody. It's been going on for a long time, and it's actually one of the oldest types of cyber attacks. But as everyone continues to put new technologies in place to protect information, the criminals also continue to evolve their methods, and it is kind of still one of the most widespread attacks that we're seeing. And with new artificial intelligence, new AI technologies, it's not the messages from Nigerian princes anymore. You don't get messages full of misspelled words. Instead, we're seeing messages and techniques that are increasingly sophisticated. They're difficult to spot, and we just want to help your users understand the risks and understand how to spot those warning signs of phishing. So hopefully today we can share some strategies with you. You can take them back to your users. You can use it in your training and just help improve overall awareness. So just a quick agenda, quick overview of what we're going to talk about. I'll provide an overview of who CampusGuard is, what we do, review some different phishing statistics and how things have evolved over time. I want to discuss some of the reasons we see users clicking or why they're responding to messages, share some of the more common attacks we've seen in the wild, and then discuss strategies for effective training, and then a few other prevention methods and tools that we can use. So CampusGuard, who we are, we were founded in 2009. We're a full-service information security and compliance consulting organization. Our teams are focused on providing services primarily to campus and community-based organizations. So think higher education, state and local government, transportation, hospitality. And then as you can see from the list below, we provide a wide variety of services from IT security and compliance assessments, vulnerability scanning and penetration testing, policy reviews, revisions, incident response planning and tabletop exercises, treasury solutions, as well as our CampusGuard Central Compliance Portal, and then of course our information security and compliance training. So let's dive in. What is phishing? At a high level, phishing is a type of cyber attack that attempts to trick people or phish people into revealing sensitive information such as passwords, account information, or credit card numbers. Phishing continues to increase, and while we see phishing attacks from all different types of methods and communications, 96% of phishing attacks still come from email, but they do come from text messages, phone calls, social media as well. And according to Verizon's 2024 Data Breach Investigations Report, stolen credentials was the initial action in 24% of data breaches globally, with phishing being the most common way attackers are getting this information. Last year, 94% of organizations reported phishing attacks within their organizations, which is basically almost everyone, with over 3.4 billion phishing attacks sent each day. And the number of phishing emails has increased by 1,265% since the release of ChatGPT, and we'll just continue to see this trend. So we can look at some of the escalating consequences, the costs of phishing. According to IBM's Cost of a Data Breach report, breaches caused by phishing cost organizations an average of $4.88 million. And it's been reported that IT teams spend an average of 28 minutes and $31 to address just a single phishing email that comes in. So a typical organization with 25 IT security professionals may spend around $1 million annually just to manage those phishing attacks that their users are getting. And as you may have noticed, many of you, I'm sure, have seen that your cyber insurance premiums continue to go up, and a lot of that can be contributed to phishing since about 2021. So what can we do? No matter how much time, money, and resources you might have, how many technologies you're able to implement, if an end user, excuse me, if one of your end users clicks a link, if they fail to follow your established policies or your established procedures, a compromise is still going to be more likely to occur. So in order to effectively change behaviors, if we can empower users to proactively identify those attacks, we have to kind of understand, why are users clicking? Why are they providing credentials? Kind of think about, what's making them do what they do, and then we can go back and structure our training to initiate change in those behaviors within our end users. So why users click? We did some research and people respond to phishing emails with information, or they click on links for a variety of reasons, including a perception of authority. So if you get an email from what seems like an authoritative or a trustworthy source, so if it looks like it's coming from your employer or it's coming from the government or maybe your financial institution or bank, you're definitely more likely to trust that and want to respond. And interestingly enough, over 50% of emails are coming from one of those global brands or impersonating one of the 20 global brands like Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, Apple, Amazon, some of those major brands, because people expect to receive emails from those organizations. They most likely have an account or are utilizing the service. So they're expecting those emails. They get an email from that and they're just quicker to respond or reply without really looking further into see if it's actually from that organization. And we do have some different email authentication methods now, like DMARC, helping to prevent some of the brand impersonation, but many attackers are still able to circumvent those protections. Curiosity, people often click on messages that sound exciting. If it's promising a prize or promising a reward, it's kind of that FOMO or fear of missing out factor. They're nervous that they might miss out on a legitimate deal, or maybe it's a once in a lifetime opportunity and they feel like that potential benefit really outweighs the overall risk. So they're going to click on it anyways. Urgency, a lot of times they'll use urgency to manipulate people into making a quick decision, tell the user that something has to be done, right now, or their account will be inactivated, or they need to be one of the first 10 people to respond in order to claim this fabulous prize. So it's actually been found that users often fall for phishing emails in less than 60 seconds from when they're sent to that user. And then just situational factors. A lot of times people will click on things if they're busy at work or if they're stressed. We see an increase in attacks right before the holiday season, which is coming up, or right before a holiday weekend when people are kind of rushing to get to their bottom of their inbox, clean their inbox out, and just get out the door. So they're more likely to want to respond to an email quickly. And then just lack of awareness. A lot of users just suffer from that general lack of awareness, or maybe they've even grown sort of immune or apathetic kind of towards those potential consequences, and they're just less likely to worry about their actions. So according to Proofpoint's 2024 State of the Phish report, 19% of end users actually admit to clicking on links or downloading attachments from contacts they didn't know, with 9% providing credentials to an untrustworthy source. So users are admitting that they take those risky actions out of convenience, if they need to save time or if they just need to meet an urgent deadline. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I must have been screaming at my kids too much last night. But all right. So what happens when a user responds to a phishing email, even if it's just to say, I'm not interested or unsubscribe? When you click on a link or in a fraudulent email, you could download or install malware or ransomware to your device, or sharing sensitive credentials obviously exposes your accounts to compromise. But even if you aren't providing sensitive details, just by responding to that phishing email, you're saying, basically, hey, this is an active email account. I've confirmed this email address is valid. I'm regularly monitoring this account. So that's just opening the door to future attacks down the road. And those attackers may start to send more emails your way. And then many users also fail to realize that their email signature it contains your name, your job title, your phone number, sometimes even a physical address. That can also be sort of risky to share. And if you're responding to a phishing email, asking to unsubscribe or telling them to stop emailing you, you're actually providing that information as well. And then in the wrong hands, that information can be used against you because you provided that information directly to the criminals. And then just setting an out of office reply. I think I've been guilty of this. A lot of us do it. You can set that out of office reply, but it also sometimes shares sensitive information like the exact dates you're going to be gone or maybe the location you're going to. Users often also share alternative contacts. So say, I'm out, please contact so-and-so in my absence. But criminals can harvest that information too, and then they can actually use that to attack your colleagues, or maybe they will impersonate you because they know you're gone and they'll reach out to those listed contacts with requests, say, please do this on my behalf or pay a false invoice or change an account on short notice. And because you're gone, you probably won't notice. The chance of you noticing while you're out is low. So it just provides them with a good opportunity to take advantage of that. And you provided them with the information they needed. So when possible, just make sure you remind your users or put it in your training that if they do set up an out of office, sometimes there's that ability to send something internally and then a different message externally. Make sure that external messages aren't sharing exact information or details. Just keep it simple. Let people know you're unable to respond right now, you're out of the office, and then just provide more generic information like a generic contact email or the primary office phone number that somebody could reach out to. And then just by responding to those fraudulent emails, depending on your email system, you might also be training the system that that email is legitimate. So it might not be flagged as suspicious or directed to your junk mail the next time around because of that response. So now looking at some of the common attacks we've seen, just how phishing has evolved over time. As I said, phishing is still definitely the most common, but the quality and the success rate of messages continues to increase. So hackers use a variety of tactics to lure users to do what they want via email. They have those pressure tactics, use urgency, so they'll respond immediately, won't take time to think about what they're doing or see if that email is valid. We'll see alerts like expanded or limited mailbox size, expiring account, trick users to believe that they need to take action right away. I think a lot of us, it's kind of what we do all day, every day is email. So if you get an action email that says your account's going to be disabled unless you do this, you start to panic. You're like, oh, but I need my email. So it's a lot of those sorts of actions that they're trying to trick people into believing. Emails also invite recipients to access a new file, maybe shared via Dropbox. They'll send a link that says, sign this document via DocuSign. They can take advantage of those common tools we're all using, and those attacks are on the rise. Other common requests just include asking users to pay an invoice, unusual account activity, alerting them that, someone else has been accessing your account. Click here to claim your account or, respond, report things. Insert or enter details to process a refund. Send sensitive information immediately. Maybe they're offering a refund on student loans or they're asking you for tax information during tax season. They definitely capitalize on some of those times of year where they know people are getting information about legitimate items. Or they might ask to restart a service. So they'll say, to prevent your Netflix subscription from being ended or, to sign into your Amazon account or make sure that your Amazon account isn't canceled, you need to click here and provide this information. So just train users to be on the lookout for those types of emails. And then we also see emails directing users. I've seen more of these to the employee portal, pretending to come from like the IT support desk or coming from HR to say log into our central authentication portal. It actually sends users to a site that looks just like that login page. But then when those users get there, they're actually sending their credentials directly to the hackers instead of logging into their legitimate site. Spear phishing, another type of attack. Spear phishing is just targeting a specific employee or maybe a group of employees within an organization. Most spear phishing emails just arrive as kind of a customized email that appears to come from an individual asking for an action to take place or confidential information. And by targeting people and just sending those kind of tailored attacks to a few people instead of blasting, 500 users within the organization, these messages can typically slip past some of the organizational spam filters. And we see organizations that have lost, thousands of dollars when a spear phishing email comes in. It's written, if it's from the CEO, sent to a staff member requesting an urgent transfer of funds, and the employee thinks, I have to do that. It's from my CEO, and they comply. That's just referred to as business email compromise, and they are usually highly targeted. They can go to great lengths to gather specific personal or work information using sites like Worked In, it's a new one, LinkedIn. And they can kind of gather and see who works at which organization, what their position is, who their boss is, or who their manager is. And then it just makes the attack more believable and increases the likelihood of success. So it's always just beneficial to train your users to verify requests. A lot of organizations have actually established procedures that don't allow for things like money transfers based solely on an email request. You can also separate job duties so that there's set checks and balances along the way that, you have to get this initial request and then it has to be approved by somebody else. And this just helps prevent that type of attack from being successful. Supply chain phishing. This attack uses phishing emails to gain access to a third-party supplier or vendor's customers. A lot of vendors will have, customer lists, or they'll share different customers on their websites, and criminals can then use that to gather lists and then reach out to those known customers. So, for example, an email might come from a vendor you're using and says, you have an outstanding balance, you need to make this payment, or maybe change your account, update your ACH banking information for us. And then it's just that, you already know that you work with that partner, you think it's someone you trust, but it isn't actually them. And I've also seen instances where they'll impersonate a common event site, like Eventbrite or one of those ticketing websites where they'll send the organization instructions for processing a refund. And it's something that they might do on a regular basis with that organization. But when they're clicking that link, they're actually directing the funds to the criminal's account. So we just want to train users to always be aware of those email requests to send a routine payment to a new account. And then before sending any funds or updating any account information or details, just make sure they're actually, getting on the phone and calling that vendor or the business partner directly to verify that information and make sure it is a legitimate request. Voice phishing or vishing, a social engineering technique where attackers use phone calls to manipulate people into sharing information. There's just something about a phone call that makes people think it's more trustworthy, think you're talking to an actual person. I think a lot of us are so used to emailing back and forth that when you get a call, you're like, oh, an actual phone call, it's for sure real. But attackers are pretending to be legitimate organizations. They're posing as technical support representatives to trick users into sharing credentials. They're even, asking for or gaining remote access into devices. We'll see them leaving voicemails requesting updates on an invoice or an alert, and they'll just leave a customer service number to please call back with any questions. And then when you return that call, you're actually being directed to a call center and to a cyber attacker. So just train your users to be aware of common warning signs like unsolicited phone calls asking for personal or financial information. If you're getting a call from an unknown number that you don't recognize, or if there's sort of those high pressure tactics, those same urgent demands for immediate action. And then just always verify callers' identities. You can't really rely solely on caller ID anymore, as they've also figured out how to manipulate caller ID displays to make it appear as if the email or the phone call is coming from a trusted source. And if a caller claims to be from a legitimate organization, you still always have the ability to kind of hang up, go out to the website, go out to maybe your contact list and use that official contact information to call them back and then, take any actions that are required. And just as an organization, you can ensure your procedures for verifying the identities of callers are up to date and then that your employees are actually following those procedures. It could be a good idea to test your staff or test your help desk staff, have a vishing engagement, and just see if through that they would circumvent procedures to help a user gain access to an account or to, unlock an account or change a password or something like that. I think for the most part, people always just want to provide good customer service and they feel like they're helping, but sometimes that can get them in trouble if they aren't following your proper verification protocols. Smishing, this is just a type of attack, kind conducted through SMS or through text messages. So similar to email, they'll often contain malicious links, or it'll have a request for personal information and may appear to come from a trusted source. So a common attack we see is just a text message coming to you from an executive asking to complete a task or purchase something, like gift cards. They'll say, hey, I'm at lunch, I can't do this. Will you take care of this real quick? And this is actually something we've seen at CampusGuard. So we've had new hires that join and they'll get a text message from our CEO almost within days after starting or after announcing that they've taken a position here. So it happens everywhere. Quishing, or short for QR code phishing, is when hackers post physical images of fake QR codes, and they'll put them in, high traffic locations or even send them via email. They can embed them right within a PDF document, or we've seen these in text messages as well. And then once the user scans that QR code, it's taking them to a spoofed site. And then they're asked to either, input their credit card information or provide personal details, or it can even install malware on your device. So you should just always verify the QR code is taking you to a real link, and make sure it's that legitimate site before entering any information. It's sort of difficult for email filters right now to detect those attacks because there's no direct link to scan. And then sometimes even with QR codes, you're using two devices. So maybe you get the message on your corporate device, your corporate laptop, but then you're holding up your phone, you're scanning the QR code with your personal phone, and then that secondary device or your personal device might not have the same level of security protections, so just opening up another risk. And I think we have a lot of colleges and universities. I think I actually saw quite a few of you on here too. So I'd say we've seen these QR code attacks more with like ticket sales. If you have, posters that are promoting an event and have a fraudulent QR code directing users to purchase tickets for something. And then we've also seen it with parking meters where you'll have a pay to park kind of sticker right on a meter. And then that's actually a fake QR code and it's directing them to pay for that parking elsewhere and sending the funds to a fraudulent third party. So I think we always say, go out and inspect your parking meters for skimmers. You can also kind of add that to your list and make sure if you are using those QR codes or look for stickers that aren't supposed to be there around your parking meters. And then social media, like I mentioned, LinkedIn or Worked.in, if you want to check that one out. You can, these also are used a lot to gather information. They'll use it to kind of scour through your profile and see what details they can find, like your pet name or your kids' names or the year you did something. But not only do they use these sites to gather information from user profiles, they're also using them in attacks and kind of setting up fake login pages. They might set up a fake login page that resembles the legitimate page of a popular social media platform. And then once you sign in, they're harvesting your credentials. Malicious links or downloads are often shared in messages that they might send to you through social media, or even just on a general post that when clicked, that leads to malware installation. And then impersonation, they can create fake profiles and then, request to be your friend or send a message and manipulate you into sharing sensitive information. So this is common where criminals will impersonate like a senior staff member and then use it to get personal information from employees or others that have become their friends. So just train users in your training as much as possible, kind of add into your training that they need to be cautious of requests on social media, teach users to review and adjust their social media security and privacy settings so they can kind of control who views their posts, limit access to personal information and try not to overshare, and then also just disable location tracking within apps when possible. And then final risk, I mentioned the artificial intelligence at the beginning of the call, new AI tools. So those AI tools can be used quickly to draft targeted phishing emails. I saw a recent stat in Harvard Business Review that the use of AI reduces the cost of phishing attacks by more than 95%. So by kind of just putting in a prompt, they can say, hey, draft an email that offers a $25 gift card to this select group of students within this specific university. And it just saves the hackers a lot of time. And the emails come out and they're really well written. They're really targeted to specific audiences. And that's only improving their ability to trick us. And then a particular concern is also deepfake phishing, in which hackers can create realistic but fake audio or video or images to trick people into giving away sensitive information. These deepfakes are often used to impersonate trusted individuals. So it could look like your colleague or a family member or a government official, and then they use that to gain access into accounts or services or just instruct others to complete certain tasks. So there are tools to detect deepfakes out there and they're improving, but it's just always important to exercise due diligence, develop and follow those multi-step authentication processes I talked about, and then always verify requests before transferring any sort of large amount of funds or changing account details. So I think with that, Kathy, if you want to launch our first poll. All right, so does your organization provide phishing awareness training to staff? So just let us know if you're providing training and it's required for everyone in the organization, if you have sort of optional training available for people to take. If there is no training or if you don't know, that's also fine. We'll just give you a few minutes to answer that question. And then whenever you're ready, if we have some good results, you can close that out. And then do you see, there we go. Now I can see it. So yes, that's great news. It looks like 80% of you are providing phishing training and it's required for your staff. 16% have the optional training, and then there's just 2% with no training. So that's good. I think really important to be training your users ongoing. So click forward. So now that we've talked about kind of all those awful and bad things that can happen, hopefully now I can share some ways to help your employees avoid falling victim. That ongoing training that you just all said you're doing is kind of the best way to help users understand not to click on links or open attachments. But all of us are, doing that in our daily job. We're all opening attachments from customers. We're all clicking on links within emails. So it's kind of difficult to determine which emails are legitimate and which are fraudulent. And I actually saw a meme when I was on Instagram earlier that said it's cute when kids say what they want to be when they grow up, but we all know that you're all just going to be writing emails all day on the computer. So I think it's true. That's what we're doing. We're all scrolling through our inboxes every day. So it's important for us to be able to kind of dig through those and determine what's relevant, have the ability to determine what's real, and then determine what's a potential risk to open. So don't just do that check the box training once a year. Just like criminals are constantly improving their techniques all the time, employees also need to repeat training at regular intervals just so they are up to date on those latest scams and they know how to respond to suspicious communications. So just some red flags. When building your training, you can kind of think about the types of things that users should be asking themselves and help your users build that internal checklist in their head as they're reviewing emails. And these are some of the things to look for. So is the email addressed to them? Is it personalized, or is it just a generic hello? Does the from address match the sender's details? What is the sender or caller asking the user to do? Is it something they normally do? Is it part of their job responsibilities, or is it sort of an out of the norm request? Does it ask for any sensitive or personal information, like a password or payment card number, social security number, any of that sensitive information that you should know not to share? Does it ask for information about other individuals or colleagues? Even things like, what's their job title, or, what's the pet name, things like that that might seem irrelevant, but it actually can help hackers crack a password or build out their information on a possible target. Does the message ask them to immediately open an attachment that they weren't expecting? I think we've kind of reinforced this, but remember that urgency or attachments are common phishing lures. And then does the message ask them to click a link or visit another site to provide information? Were they not expecting an email of this nature? So is it, a password request or password reset that they didn't request, an MFA login or a push notification that they didn't generate, an account expiration or a travel confirmation and they're not going anywhere? Those are all kind of things that users can be on the lookout for. Or another example, if they get a package delivery notice from UPS or FedEx, and they don't have a package coming, obviously that's not meant for them, but actually these are a lot more prevalent and more successful over the holidays, which are coming up. So people are likely to have, packages on the way, and they might be expecting a shipping notification, and then they might not take the time to realize that, that one wasn't for their real order. Do the URLs match the domain when users hover over a link in a message? So everyone's probably familiar with how to do that on the computer. They can kind of hover over that link and see if it's really going where it says it's going. But on a mobile device, kind of put that in your training to just teach users that they can press and hold down on that link until the bubble appears and then lift their finger so that they can see where that URL is going to take them before they actually click on it. So training just needs to be provided ongoing, help employees become more vigilant, let them know these basic warning signs of phishing, and then also make sure they have the time to actually stop and think about if a request does seem legitimate, and then run through that checklist in their head before taking any action. Just a few additional strategies for training. Repeated micro training at regular intervals just helps spread awareness about the latest scams, keeps reminding users how to respond and report. We do recommend providing content in smaller micro modules just so it's easier for staff to find the time within their daily responsibilities to take courses or to go back and review content again. And this method of learning is also found to be more effective for knowledge retention versus one, long hour-long annual training requirement. And then as much as you can, set up personalized campaigns if you can target it to a specific group or a department or even a role, and it's walking through things they would see within their environments or within their daily activities, they're more likely to relate that back and remember. And then just sharing real world examples. If you can find current events or something that happened to other users within your industry, that's definitely helpful to show that it really could happen to your organization. Show users how they can protect themselves at home as well as in the office. Just encourages that personal involvement, keeps people more engaged, and they feel more responsible for their own behaviors and potential consequences. And then if users can walk away kind of feeling like they learned something important that they'll actually use in their daily lives, or maybe something that they'll go home and share with their families or share with their kids, their students, that's just something that'll kind of help stick with them, and they'll use that ongoing. And we have seen a lot of scams targeted recently for colleges and universities that have taken advantage of things like student loan forgiveness, scholarship or grant opportunities, potential job or internship opportunities. So if you can kind of share those types of examples with your staff or with your students, then they can know to look for those as well. We're also seeing right now, obviously, with next week, different emails related to the election, and then donations or requesting donations to natural disaster recovery efforts, things like the hurricane recovery efforts. So just kind of keeping people aware that these scams are constantly changing and things they need to be aware of. And actually, when I was putting this presentation together, I saw that a lot of the universities we work with have websites where they will share examples out of attacks that have actually come into other staff. And it shows just what things are happening to real users within the organization and helps people kind of be on the lookout for that type of email in their inbox. So I think Indiana University and Stanford, I saw just some example campaigns. It was like, hey, this was received on campus recently, look for it, and then this is where to report to. So just letting people know about those resources in your training is important. Sometimes users kind of almost give up. They'll say, well, I can't do anything. The cyber criminals are always a step ahead, but we don't want them to feel like that. We want to kind of encourage them as much as possible to feel confident that they do know how to identify attacks and they are helping, and just give them the tools to report and identify those potential scams. And then just one last thing kind of helpful to training. We all have the online training, but it's also important to share information through different mediums. I know people learn in a lot of different ways, so you can supplement your online training with things like posters. If you have a different infographic or something you can share in an email, send out email alerts or a weekly or monthly newsletter, even using social media posts. Just find kind of your users where they're at, and then just keep that information security information top of mind for them with different reminders. And you can also share out resources to staff if there's an event you see coming up or maybe a webinar that are educational in nature. Just kind of keep that in front of your users and they might take advantage of it. And then just a few other ways to prevent phishing. If we look at phishing, it kind of really has 5 different phases. So the criminals are, collecting targets. They're looking for the users. They're collecting information about those targets. They're drafting the emails. They're sending the emails, and then they're actually, you know, getting the information back and then validating and improving the emails based on those response rates. So if you can kind of look at ways to how to stop or slow down the criminals at each of those phases, we can help prevent the attacks from being successful. So one of the major ways to help is to report phishing, training your users to report suspicious messages, make sure they all know where and how to report phishing attempts. So make it really easy to report. I think a lot of organizations just have that report phish button right up at the top of your email platform. Um, if you can make it easy and quick to report emails, it'll be better. You can also offer possible incentives for users that successfully identify phishing emails. And then you want to discourage users from investigating phishing messages themselves. You want to leave that up to the experts. So encourage users to report it to IT as soon as possible. And that way the organization can kind of be on alert for suspicious activity. And it also allows them to actually go out and remove any malicious messages from other employee inboxes before they accidentally respond. And even if someone does, click and then they think they might have responded to a phishing email, we don't want them to be scared that they're going to get in trouble. So making sure people know to report those as well to IT. I think users get kind of skeptical if, when they make those reports, if it's actually doing anything, is it really going to stop the cyber criminals? So making sure you kind of explain, what you're doing when they get those messages and how you're going to react and respond can be beneficial. And then just conducting phishing tests. These can be a great tool to kind of complement your training, show if your users are improving, and also just show if your training is effective. It's a great way to increase employee engagement and then identify any potential areas of weakness. And this is a great way to learn about those areas of weakness or dangers in a controlled environment so that you're finding out where they are instead of the criminals. So emails can be sent from your IT staff or a third-party organization that's hired to provide those phishing tests. And it just keeps employees on their toes. If they know that some might be phishing tests, some are coming, they can kind of be on the watch for those. They're looking through all their emails more carefully. And then it can also be used to educate them on different methods used by attackers and what they should watch out for. So when testing, I think it's just important to communicate kind of why you're doing it to the larger workforce community. It's not to single people out, it's not to get anybody in trouble, but it's just to help you understand as an organization where your training is effective, where you might need to be providing employees with better information, and then just to help them in general identify potential attacks. So during the test, just keeping track of, who's clicking on what, if they're opening an attachment, if they're providing credentials, and then you can use those results to understand your overall risks. And then after the simulation, you can share those results. You can present them kind of final statistics organization-wide, and you can congratulate people if they did well, maybe provide an award. And then for those that did fall for the phishing messages, just a simple response, make them aware of their mistake, and then you can provide any additional training that might be needed on how to spot a future phishing attack. And then it doesn't have to be just be email. You can do those tests, send them via text messaging, or do those vishing tests where you're testing the help desk response and seeing if people are following procedure. And then just kind of monitor results over time. If you can see that the number of users clicking or sharing information is going down, if you see an increase in employee engagement and they're actually reporting more to your IT staff, that's a great sign, and it just shows that they're more engaged and willing to help. And then if you see a reduction in malware outbreaks or performance issues, along with a reduction in help desk requests. So I think I said at the beginning that one phishing email takes IT teams 30 minutes to respond to. If you can help reduce those requests and have more users reporting phishing and not clicking on things, you can save your staff a ton of time and resources. So I think we have one more poll for you. Does your organization perform phishing tests? Are you sending those phishing emails I just talked about? And if you are you doing it annually? Do you do it kind of throughout the year ongoing? If you aren't doing those tests, or if you don't know. Give you just a minute to answer that one if I haven't lost you already. All right, did we get? Okay, so it looks like almost 60% are doing ongoing phishing tests. About 12% are doing those once a year. 22%, so about a quarter of you aren't doing phishing tests right now, and then 10% unsure. All right, moving on. Just some tools for prevention. It's not all about users. I think I put a lot of stress on the end users being responsible and needing to understand and have that awareness, but there's other tools. Getting that top level buy-in for prevention is important, and you can help promote things to your users as well, like antivirus software. Antivirus software can protect and detect and remove malware from entering the system through email. Anti-spam filters just automatically send those phishing emails to the user's junk folder. Regular browser and software updates are obviously super important to protect against known threats. Deploying multi-factor or MFA across all accounts, which requires that second level of verification, is really important. So if they do get a hold of your credentials, they can't get access to accounts. And then network penetration testing to determine how far an attacker could get or what they could access if they were able to gain access to a specific user account or system after a phishing attack can be really valuable. And then also strategies just like limiting your directory information. So if you have all of your employees or students listed out there with their email addresses, it's just really easy for the criminals to harvest that information and then target your organization. And then aligning training with policies. So if you can customize your training to align with all of your policies and your standards, it just kind of helps ensure that your message is consistent. You're providing your users with that same instruction and they're able to combine everything together. And then also you can always use compliance. It really is on your side. So I think most of you said you do have annual cybersecurity awareness deployed and it was required for most employees, so that's great. But if there are any organizations still struggling to make training a requirement, instead of just saying it's an information security best practice, there's also several compliance standards that require it. And there's a few that have actually started to call out phishing specifically as well. So the HIPAA security rule just requires all covered entities to implement a security awareness training program, and it actually says that the training should include training on how to identify phishing emails, protect that sensitive health information, and prevent data breaches. GLBA, or the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, it requires training on how to recognize and respond to fraud and identity theft schemes, computer security, and then how to properly dispose of information. PCI DSS requires security awareness training for payment card merchants. And actually the new version 4.0 that came out somewhat recently, it actually specifically mentions that training needs to include information on how to prevent social engineering and phishing attacks for your merchants. And then factor red flags, GDPR, they also require security awareness training, and it's kind of a part of all of those ISO and NIST cybersecurity standards. So just use those to your advantage. If you are struggling to get buy-in for training or buy-in for different security tools, you can use those compliance requirements to your advantage. So in summary, I think we kind of talked about a lot today, but phishing's not going away. The tactics are going to continue to evolve. So just continue to educate your staff on those different tactics, the new things we're seeing, and kind of we can't really rely on our technology. We can't rely on those capabilities. So we just need to find ways to motivate users to pay attention, help them understand how much their individual behaviors really can make a difference, really can help them protect themselves and protect your organization, and just empower them to make good decisions. And then as much as you can as an organization, just eliminate those barriers that might prevent them from coming to you or prevent them from reporting a suspicious email. I have a middle schooler, so I've been talking a lot about online safety at home with her, and it's kind of the same thing where I just have to constantly be in front of it, teach her about the risks, continual reinforcement, using a lot of lessons learned as examples so that she or your employees don't make the same mistakes, and then just structure your programs so they're becoming more educated about the risks and the individual roles they play in prevention. And I think do want to leave a few minutes for questions, but just a few resources, and we'll share this presentation out after the call. But a phishing infographic that you can steal and use if you want to. We do have a student phishing module out right now for free. If you want to request that by tomorrow is actually the deadline, the end of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. But you can use that throughout the year with your students if you want to download that and upload it to your LMS and share it for training for your students. We do have phishing training. You can check that out at the link. And then there was a few reports that came out recently. The National Cybersecurity Alliance sent out a Behave report that kind of talked about just general overall cybersecurity attitudes and behaviors. And then the EDUCAUSE Horizon report, the Cybersecurity and Privacy Edition, is a great resource to check out as well. And with that, I don't know if we've had questions coming in, or if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to submit them.
We do have a couple of questions, yeah. Here's a really good one. This is probably for Chad. Is there a standardized phishing test interval that's proven best?
Yeah, I haven't looked into any of the studies to say, on these intervals are more effective. I would say kind of the industry standard along with pen testing has always been annually, but we understand, again, without the research in front of me, that doing it more often or doing it, at random times throughout the year is probably best, because it's not like, oh, hey, it's October, there's probably going to be a phishing campaign going on, or things like that. But, there's a lot of time in between the annual tests. So I would say, doing them throughout the year, maybe around, like Katie said, times where there's events going on, elections, hurricanes, things like that, or events there at the organization. Graduation time would be a great thing to, send something out about that and see if you can catch some people off guard and see if you can, they can identify those red flags. So I would say throughout the years is best.
Awesome. We do have a couple of questions asking about the slide deck. Are we going to be distributing the slide deck out to folks after the presentation? Okay, awesome. Yes. We are. Okay.
We'll be sending out, just real quick, we'll be sending an email with the slide deck as well as the recording, and I should be getting that out by tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that.
Wonderful. Okay. We have another question here. It says, for phishing campaigns, is there any benefit to seeing if the users click on the link and type in their credentials, or would just logging which users click on the link be sufficient?
Yeah, I think as a penetration tester, we would prefer getting credentials, but I think as a test, it depends on what the goals are of the organization. If you're just trying to identify, help them identify the links, I would say just clicking would be sufficient. But if you also want to, and you probably should, take it a step further and be able to identify what is a single sign-on page that's legitimate, or one that looks like a clone, and if they've typed in credentials, have they typed it in anywhere else on a legitimate phishing link? So that user, we suggest that if somebody has fallen for a phishing engagement that we conduct, that those users have their passwords reset, because now we have them at a minimum, but it's very possible that they've fallen for something before and the password's already compromised.
Okay, here's another question for you guys. How do we stay informed of the latest phishing tactics?
Yeah, I think I can share some, and then Chad, if you want to jump into, I think there's a lot of great cyber newsletters out there. I can send some links out maybe in that email too with you, Kathy. We have a cyber briefing that goes out. You can sign up for that on our website. It has a lot of information about recent attacks and threats that we've seen. There's some other resources. Chad, I think your team does a great job of staying up to date. Is there certain feeds they follow or listservs?
Yeah, I wish I had answer that fits into the box, but really like RSS feeds. So we're aggregating information from all over. It's taken years to compile those RSS feeds, and so I say, just looking at the resources Katie's got will be a good start. But used to be Twitter, X. I really like it for current, very, very current news and tactics, tools, things that are being used in the wild. People are posting almost in real time versus waiting to see it in a news article a week later, 3, 4 days later. So I really like to get a lot of my information from there. But being able to compile all the sources into an RSS feed would be real helpful.
Okay, another question. How often should we phish our users?
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I said before. If you're not doing it, I would say, do it at least annually. There's also a point where it's too much. I would say if you're phishing weekly, unless you're carving it up like different departments or whatever, get this week or this month, that might be okay too. You don't want them to get exhausted to the point where they're spending so much time looking out for your phishing emails and they miss legitimate ones. So I would say monthly, maybe quarterly would probably be a good answer to that. Katie, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you mentioned maybe targeting different groups at different times. And I think that's a really good suggestion because otherwise, the first person that identifies the fish then sends that out to all their colleagues and said, hey, watch out, this is a fish. So you're not really giving the other employees an opportunity to find that themselves. So if you can target them with different emails kind of at different times, then it does become more helpful. And kind of training, I think same thing. Users almost only have so much time during the day. They have all their daily job responsibilities as well. So you kind of have to take that into account and find the balance and use kind of smaller training windows and then balance that with some of the phishing tests. So sure, you don't want to exhaust them like Chad said.
Okay, here's another one. Do you have any recommendations for getting buy-in for sending phishing tests or requiring training for employees?
Yeah, I think so. I mentioned the compliance requirements. Those are always helpful because there's fines, regulations that state you have to do it. If you have different breaches, maybe that you've seen or lessons learned that have impacted organizations in your same industry or similar to your size or structure, that is great. And you can show how if we would have done this, we could have prevented that. Or if we don't do this, we might end up in the same shoes. And then just kind of using tools like the phishing test to validate training, show that it is making a difference. If you can use training to show kind of in a controlled environment that this is helping, hopefully you can help achieve that buy-in to continue to do training. And Chad, I don't know if you have any other suggestions, but I think just making sure they know that the consequences are real. If you're a community college, you can find a story about another community college that did just go through a ransomware attack and share that with your leadership or your board and get that buy-in for training.
Yeah, the only thing I would add there, it kind of takes a little bit of a left, but when you're doing the phishing training, just make sure that you're understanding, are you trying to evaluate the technical controls or are you trying to evaluate the people? Because when we conduct phishing training, there's a lot of great tools out there that will spot the phishing emails and then block them. So then the users never get them. We instruct our customers, we'll start with a test email. And if that gets through, fine. If it doesn't, then we'll have them whitelist the domain or the email that our phishing email is going to come from, because in those scenarios we're not testing the technology that they have. We want to test the users. So being able to allow those emails through to conduct, and get some good results is important. So just understand when you get that buy-in, are we testing technology or are we testing our users?
Okay, excellent. Here's a really great question about the dark web. Interesting. Do you recommend using tools to search or scan the dark web to see if staff passwords or user IDs have been exposed as part of different attacks or breaches?
Yeah, this one's interesting. I do, with a caveat. What are you going to do with it? You got to know what your goals are. If you use a service. And that's what I would, recommend is instead of going to the dark web and doing the scouring and the searching for breaches and data yourself, there's plenty of organizations and companies that do that. That's how credit card companies, when they offer dark web monitoring, they're essentially aggregating all that data from a company that's going out, either buying the breach data or actually doing the scraping from what they call the dark web. There's a couple of good services out there. HaveIBeenPwned.com. Troy Hunt, he runs that service. It's been around for a long time. Really, really great guy. And he puts together, he essentially gets from security researchers all the breach data, puts it into a database. You can type in your email address and see, is my email address a part of a breach? But if you're doing it at the organizational level, you can prove that you have control of a domain, school.edu, and you can actually set up alerts for free to be alerted when anybody in your domain has an email address that appears in the breaches. Won't provide passwords. It won't provide some of the other data. It'll just say, hey, this email address is contained in this breach. So LinkedIn, so on and so forth. There's another resource that's really good that we actually use. There's some paid versions, free versions. It's called dhashed.com. We use it on penetration tests, the paid version where we can type in school.edu, your domain name, and we can, get a list of 10,000 usernames and passwords or email addresses and passwords or phone numbers, addresses, any of the data that's in the breach. And then what we do is we'll take those passwords and we'll do credential stuffing on a login page for your organization and see if any of those credentials are valid. So they also have an enterprise monitoring option. They do individual monitoring for free on dhashed as well, but they have an enterprise level. I don't know what the cost is, so I don't know if it's expensive or not, but kind of something similar where you can monitor your domain. You can get all that information sent back to you. What would be interesting is when an email address comes back and it's got a password, that could have been that person with the email address. It could have been them registering for, a third-party site. But as long as they've used a different password, even though that email address for the university or college and a password is in the breach, we should not be able to use that then to log into a university system. So teaching your users, do not reuse passwords would be great. And I know I probably strayed from the question here, but yes, if you're going to do something with it, I would suggest, using some services that have dark web data and using the monitoring that they offer.
Ted, what was the name of the service that provides dark web searches? What was the name that you mentioned?
The first one is HaveIBeenPwned.com.
Pwned, okay.
Yep, it's PWNED .com, and then the second one is dhashed.com.
Okay, thank you. And I'm happy to add some of those resources to the presentation as well, so everybody has access to that. All right, and I think we're pretty much coming up at the top of the hour here. I just wanted to, say thank you again to our presenter, Katie, and thanks for everybody for attending today's webinar. Katie, I think you had one quick little slide too that you might want to share.
Oh, yeah, I just had a Halloween cartoon. For everyone. Happy Halloween, everybody, tomorrow.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder to please complete our brief survey. It is brief. It helps provide feedback on what you thought of today's presentation. That launches immediately after this is over. And we'll be, again, as a reminder, we're sending out the email. I'll try to get that out tomorrow with the link of the presentation as well as the recording. And that's it. Thanks everybody very much and have a fantastic day.
Yeah, thank you.